Okay, imagine a whole town paralyzed by the fear of losing its wealth, not to violent, roaming bandits, but to the sheer cunning of two legendary tricksters. Today's explainer breaks down an absolutely brilliant Urdu folktale that serves as a literal masterclass in deception, human psychology, and absolute one-upmanship. We are looking at a story where two rival con men decide to actually team up to rob an entire town, and well, predictably, they end up trying to rob each other in a series of incredibly elaborate schemes.
So let's dive into this. What exactly happens when the two greatest con men in the world cross paths? Because instead of a simple heist, what we get here is a rapidly escalating, high-stakes game of chess. In this explainer, we're going to analyze the anatomy of this master con. We'll track the escalating tricks, the ruthless double crosses, and the constantly shifting power dynamics of a classic story that absolutely proves there truly is no honor among thieves.
Section 1. Clash of Master Thieves.
To really grasp how this whole wild saga unfolds, we first need to meet our two titans of deception. First up is Jalil, and he relies heavily on physical presence. With a fearsome beard and dark kohl around his eyes, his imposing look practically intimidates victims into handing over their valuables before they even realize they've been robbed. And then we have Habib. He's the ultimate sweet talker. Local legend actually says Habib is so perceptive, he can count the feathers of a flying hawk. He uses these clever conversational traps to entangle victims in their own words. Now, when these two cross paths in the market, they recognize each other instantly. But instead of fighting over turf, they strike a dark partnership. They set their sights on the ultimate score, a wealthy, innocent young orphan named Farhan, whose incredibly rich father Haji Luqman has just passed away.
Section 2. The Graveyard Deception.
Our tricksters quickly realize that Farhan's greatest weakness isn't greed at all. It's his deep piety and devotion to his late father. So let's break down the mechanics of this supernatural trap they set up, step by step. In the dead of night, they sneak out to the father's fresh grave. They move the dirt, and Habib climbs inside, hiding just below the surface. The next morning is step 2. Jalil visits the grieving son, Farhan, claiming to be an old friend of his father, and he demands the repayment of a totally fake debt of 100 gold dinars. Naturally, when Farhan asks for proof, Jalil takes him straight to the graveyard, boldly claiming the father's spirit will testify, and that tees up step 3 perfectly. Habib, literally buried alive, plays the role of the tortured ghost, projecting this heavy, shaking voice from beneath the earth.
And this just perfectly illustrates how deeply they weaponize this young man's beliefs. Habib from under the dirt cries out, "Until this debt is paid, I will not get salvation from the torment of the grave. Give him 100 dinars. Boom. It is a psychological checkmate. Farhan, totally terrified and heartbroken, immediately hands over a heavy bag of 100 gold dinars to Jalil and just flees the graveyard in an absolute panic. The con is a complete, undeniable success.
Section 3. The Ultimate Double Cross.
But hey, we are talking about con men here, right? A successful heist is never actually the end of the story. It's usually just the setup for the ultimate double cross. Jalil is now standing over the grave, holding a very heavy bag of 400 gold dinars. The original plan was to dig Habib out and split the money 50-50. But looking at all that gold, Jalil does some quick math. I mean, why walk away with 50 dinars when he can just keep all 100? So in a truly breathtaking act of betrayal, Jalil leaves the graveyard without making a single sound, completely abandoning his new partner to suffocate under all those heavy rocks and dirt.
Now you might be thinking Habib is done for, but sheer dumb luck actually saves the day. Hours later, as he's slowly suffocating and swearing absolute revenge, a destitute drunkard just happens to wander into the graveyard. The man collapses near the grave, crying out to his deceased grandfather for money. Without missing a beat, Habib uses his ghostly voice one more time, telling the drunkard to dig up the neighboring grave for gold. The man frantically clears the dirt, and Habib just bursts out of the ground. The terrified drunkard runs for his life, and Habib is free, setting the stage for a seriously spectacular revenge.
Section 4. The Fake Death Showdown.
Okay, with Habib out of the grave and furious, both men start drastically trying to outmaneuver one another. And the crucial point here is how incredibly fast this escalates over just a few days. Follow this timeline with me. On day 1, Jalil totally anticipates Habib's revenge, so he tells his wife to announce his death to the town, while he hides out in a trench outside the village. Day 2, Habib arrives, sees right through the widow's fake tears, and decides to play the grieving best friend, stubbornly refusing to leave the house. Day 3, Habib spies on the wife delivering food out to the trench. He actually disguises himself as the wife, tricks Jalil into revealing that the gold is hidden right under the home's 10-door oven, and steals every last coin back. By day 4,
Habib knows Jalil is coming for him, so he decides to fake his own death lying in a wooden coffin while his wife wails outside.
Section 5. Bandits and the Sword.
This absolutely bizarre game of chicken brings us to the hilarious climax of their rivalry. Jalil arrives at Habib's house, sees the coffin, and immediately realizes it's a trick. But instead of calling him out, Jalil plays along. He weeps so violently for his lost brother that he somehow actually convinces the townspeople to bury him alive in the very same grave, right next to Habib's coffin. He just refuses to let Habib win. And crazy enough, the town obliges. So now the two master thieves find themselves buried alive, side by side, whispering to each other under the dirt, finally realizing they are perfectly, equally matched. Right at that moment, literally right above their buried heads, 5 highly dangerous bandits arrive at the graveyard to split a massive royal treasure they just looted, assuming it's a safe spot. But the split they do is far from even. The first 4 bandits get these huge piles of gold, but the 5th bandit, he gets nothing but an iron sword, and he starts complaining bitterly about this blatantly unfair split.
The bandit leader tries to reassure this 5th guy by telling him the sword is magic, literally so sharp it can easily cut straight through solid stone. To prove it, the leader says, "Let's test it by stabbing through these 2 fresh graves right here." So put yourself in Jalil and Habib's shoes for a second. You are trapped underground. A bandit is about to thrust a magical iron sword right through your chest. How on earth do 2 buried thieves escape a heavily armed gang? Absolute explosive panic. That's how. Right before the sword can pierce the earth, Jalil and Habib smash up through the dirt and coffin wood, bursting out of the ground, screaming at the absolute top of their lungs. The bandits, who are already on edge hanging out in a dark graveyard, are utterly terrified. They are instantly convinced these screaming, dirt-covered figures are bloodthirsty jinns, vengeful spirits. The bandits drop the entire royal treasure, their sandals, the sword, and just run for their lives into the night.
Section 6. The Final Masterstroke.
So they dust themselves off. They've not only survived this whole ordeal, but now they have an absolute mountain of royal gold sitting right in front of them. But wait, the scoreboard is not settled yet, because one bandit didn't actually run all the way away. That 5th bandit, the one who was given the sword, hid in the bushes. He watches the 2 so-called jinns dust themselves off and realizes, wait a minute, they are just normal men. He steps out and demands a cut of the gold. Now, Jalil and Habib, being who they are, try to con him. They divide the gold into 2 massive piles for themselves and put a few tiny coins in the iron sword in a 3rd pile, telling the bandit, "Wow, you are so lucky, the magical sword is yours again." But the bandit isn't stupid. He picks up the sword, totally agrees it is incredibly valuable, and immediately puts the blade right up to Habib's neck. A massive backfire. The bandit completely reverses the con, uses the threat of violence to steal all the gold, and flees to a local inn to celebrate.
Standing empty-handed once again, our master tricksters have a real moment of clarity. They realize that excessive cleverness is the root of the snare. Their own overconfidence, trying to trick a man with a weapon they literally just handed him, was their downfall. But, true to their nature, they don't mope for long. They immediately hatch one final plot to get their treasure back.
Let's see how they execute this flawless final con. They track the bandit straight to the inn. Step 1. Jalil disguises himself as a blind, mystical astrologer, with Habib acting as his guide. Step 2. They approach the bandit's table and loudly proclaim that the gold he possesses carries a deadly curse from a graveyard jinn, and whoever touches it will physically turn to stone. The bandit, already super paranoid from the whole graveyard incident, completely panics. Step 3. Habib offers a convenient solution. He says the blind astrologer has a magical brass amulet that breaks the curse, but it can only be traded for an iron sword. The terrified bandit eagerly hands over the sword and takes the completely worthless brass amulet. Step 4. The very second Habib has the sword, the blind astrologer pulls off his blindfold. They turn the sword on the bandit exactly like he had done to them and reclaim their kingdom of gold once and for all.
So Jalil and Habib walk away victorious, proving they truly are the kings of the con. But it leaves us with a really fascinating question to ponder. Ultimately, in the game of deception, is it the sharpest sword or the sharpest mind that actually wins? Because while brute force might have stolen the gold initially, it was the perfectly engineered illusion of fear that won it all back. Thanks for hanging out with me on this explainer, and keep your eyes peeled out there. You never know when a master con is playing out right in front of you.